Okay, class, this is the Introduction to the Skeletal System, Part 2. I know I'm a little late getting this on, but here it is. So let's just review your 4 tissue types again. Epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Remember, bone is a connective tissue. The ground substance in bone is hard. The matrix of all connective tissue is made up of ground substance and protein fibers. I'm going to just add a little bit extra here for the bone. The matrix of bone is composed, 2/3 of it is made up of ground substance, the inorganic part. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between inorganic and organic. But 2/3 of the matrix is the ground substance, that hard part. 1/3 is going to be protein fibers. That is collagen protein fibers. This is the organic part. If you are taking organic chemistry, it has carbon. Whatever you're talking about has carbon. Basically, if it's inorganic, it lacks carbon. So let's look at this matrix in bone. The ground substance of the matrix, that is the big difference between cartilage and bone. And when we talk about how bone is formed, for the most part, bone is using cartilage, and it's going to be hyaline cartilage, and it's going to convert it into bone. So that will be on the next video. What happens is that ground substance of bone is mineralized. And when we say the ground substance has been mineralized, we're talking about depositing calcium salts into the ground substance. So these calcium salts, calcium phosphate, are going to be put into that ground substance by the bones that make our matrix. And it's these ground calcium salts that give bone its hardness. It makes bone hard. It's been mineralized. So when you say the ground substance has been mineralized, it means calcium salts have been put into the ground substance. It makes bone extremely hard. But it's the collagen protein fibers in the matrix that give bone its tensile strength. What is tensile strength? It's the ability of anything to withstand compression forces and not break right away. So if we were in the classroom, I would show you this pencil. Here's my pencil. Plain old pencil hitting the table. It is hard. Yes, any number 2 pencil is hard. But what happens when I put pressure on my pencil? I just broke it. That is a hard pencil, but it is easy to break. Same thing with the bone. If you did not have those protein fibers in there, you could just snap that hard bone. So you need those protein fibers to give it that tensile strength, that ability to withstand pressure, compression, and not break. Very, very important clinically, as we're going to see next. So this is an X-ray of a child who's, for some reason, does not have enough calcium. The calcium, you don't have calcium, you can't add calcium salts into your ground substance and mineralize it. So these bones are soft. They are soft. We have our collagen protein fibers in there, but the bone is not hard enough to withstand the weight of this child. So what might be some reasons that this child does not have enough calcium to mineralize the ground substance, to make it hard? Two scenarios. Number one, you have to have calcium to mineralize your bones. The only way you get calcium is through food. You take in food and you get calcium. This child, I'll just say this child lives up in Norway. The winters are long. There is no sun for 4 to 6 months. So but this child is drinking cow's milk every day. They have a cow on the farm where they live up in Norway. She's drinking cow's milk every day, getting plenty of calcium. Yet, why are her bones still soft? No sunlight, no vitamin D. You need vitamin D to absorb dietary calcium from your small intestines. So this child lacks calcium not because she's not eating it, but she's not absorbing it. So if she's not absorbing it, it's not available to mineralize the ground substance. Now this child is in sunny Africa, getting plenty of vitamin D. But there is limited food resources for this child. This child, his bones are soft because he's not getting enough dietary calcium. Here is the child, same child, 6 months later. Bones are now able to withstand his weight, so they're hard again. This child was given food, calcium-rich food, and he was able to fix his bones. This child can't go out in the sun, so you have to give him vitamin D supplements. So always look at the scenario of your patient. If they have some kind of softening of the bone and you know the bone is not hardened, they lack calcium, but figure out why they are lacking calcium. Is it a vitamin D problem and they're not absorbing the dietary calcium? Or is it a dietary problem where they're not getting any calcium in their diet? Now, what else is in the matrix besides the ground substance where we have our calcium salts? The protein fibers. If you do not have the proper amount of protein fibers, or they're not made correctly, you will have what they call brittle bone disease. And we'll talk about that later also, but brittle bone disease, these people don't have the proper protein fibers, so their bones snap. As babies, they have multiple fractures. There was a great BBC thing on this little girl who has multiple fractures throughout her body. Our baby is made of glass because she's so fragile. So what happens with these people, Their bones are so fragile. They're hard, but there's no protein fibers, so they snap. The bones don't heal right. There's so many fractures. They have stunted growth. They are in wheelchairs. So that's not good either. Just to remind you, the matrix of bone is so important. So we said there were 3 elements found in all connective tissue: the cells of the connective tissue, protein fibers, and ground substance. We've already talked about this with bone. This is your matrix. So let's talk about the cells of bone. There are 3 main bone cells you need to know. Osteoblasts. That B stands for, think of it as building the bone. These little guys are building bone, making new bone. Osteoclasts, they have a C. They are consuming the bone. They are actually breaking down the bone. They're breaking down the bone matrix. And then we have our regular osteocytes. Remember, osteo bone, site means cell. These are bone cells that maintain the bone, and they live in lacunae, just like chondrocytes. So let's look at these guys. Now, osteoblasts, they produce new bone. They're laying down the matrix. Remember, these guys are exocytosing out the ground substance and the protein fibers. That new matrix is called osteoid. So osteoid is the matrix made by the osteoblasts. It hasn't quite been mineralized completely. Osteo is just new matrix made by the osteoblasts. Osteoblasts do not live in lacunae. We talked about them when we were looking at the periosteum, the inner cellular layer of the periosteum. Remember? The inner cellular layer of the periosteum is where some bone cells live. Well, those bone cells are the osteoblasts and the osteoclasts. So these guys do not live in lacunae. They live in the periosteum, in the cellular layer of the periosteum, and in the endosteum. And remember, that cellular layer of the periosteum is right next to the compact bone. So if you look at this picture, this is just showing you compact bone. Here is showing you an osteocyte in a lacunae that we'll look at later. Just kind of like in the cartilage model. Then you have these osteoblasts right next to the compact bone. They are manufacturing new bone, laying down new bone, laying down new bone. Whereas these guys, the osteoclasts, these bone cells remove the pre-existing bone matrix. They are actually going to dissolve the matrix with acid. They're going to squirt acid in there and some kind of lysosome that's going to dissolve the matrix. And that will release the calcium salts that are in there. Now, these guys are closely related to large macrophages. P-H-Y, phagocytes. I spelled it wrong. P-H-Y, phagocytes. They are multinucleated. Here's their nuclei. They have multinuclei. They are huge. He is going around removing, consuming, reabsorbing the bone. You may think, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you ever want to remove or resorb the bone? We're constantly breaking down the bone, building it up all through your life. You never stop rebuilding, building up. But you have to have a balance. You reabsorb the bone, you build it back up. So these two cells, osteoblasts and osteoclasts, are in balance. He breaks down, he builds up. So everything is in balance. Now, when we are treating osteoporosis, you probably heard of osteoporosis in older people like me. We get something called osteopenia, which means a decreased amount of hardness in our bone. And finally, we can develop into osteoporosis, which is big, porous bones, not good, prone to fracture. So in osteoporosis, what happens as we age, there becomes an imbalance between osteoclasts and osteoblasts. The osteoblasts poop out. They're not making enough bone, new bone, and the osteoclasts are continuing with their reabsorption of bone, breaking down the bone. So, imbalance. The way we treat osteoporosis, one of the main ways we treat it is we take a medication that kind of stops Mr. Osteoclast from breaking down the bone. That's one way. That's the most common way. The other way is to stimulate the osteoblasts to start making new bone. That's a good way too. But the problem is you're stimulating these osteoblasts and they won't let you take that treatment for more than a year because you can actually stimulate them too much and they can become cancerous. So just understand how osteoclasts, osteoblasts, they live in the same area, the same place. One breaks down bone, one builds bone up. Here's another picture. Here's showing you the big old osteoclast. He has his acid secretions and lysozyme, and they're dissolving the bone here. And the osteoblasts are next to him. They're building the bone back up. Now, why would you want to break down bone? What if your calcium levels are too low in your blood? For some reason, you're not getting enough calcium. You need calcium for a whole bunch of functions that you'll find out in physio. If you don't have enough calcium, where do you store calcium? In the matrix of the bone, in that ground substance. So the osteoclast is going to dissolve it, and that calcium that's stored in the ground substance will be released into the blood. So make sure you have enough calcium, you're eating enough calcium, you got enough vitamin D, so your osteoclasts aren't breaking down your bone. And here's showing you, oh my gosh, here's showing you the osteocytes in the compact bone in their lacunae. So we're going to look at them next. So make sure you understand osteoclasts and osteoblasts and kind of how they work. If we were in the classroom, we would be drawing this. So what I'd like you to do, I should have told you when we started this, have your colored pencils again and draw this. It will help you. We're going to look at the histology. Boy, I am not spelling well tonight. We're going to look at the histology of compact bone and see where these osteocytes live. So compact bone, the hard outer bone, It's very organized, and it's composed of units called osteons. You have to understand what osteons are. Osteons, aka Haversian systems, in case you see that word, but we just call them osteons. I'm going to go to another page. This is how I would draw it in the classroom with you. You would be drawing it with me, but we're going to do something different online. So what I want you to do is just make a center circle like this, and then draw another ring around it. Draw another ring around it, and one more ring. So do that. You can pause the video and draw your rings like this, and then we're going to talk about what you've drawn. In the center of the ring, right here, this is called the Central Canal. The Central Canal. Now, the Central Canal is where blood is going to be coming, and it's going to be bringing blood to the osteocytes that are somewhere in here. So, Central Canal, the source of blood for our osteocytes. Each of these rings, this is going to be our matrix in here. So we're going to have our ground substance and protein fibers in here. This is all matrix. This is all matrix. This is all matrix. We call these rings of matrix concentric lamellae. Concentric lamellae. So that's something else you have to know. So the way the protein fibers are laid down in here is going to be real important. We want to make our bones strong. We want those collagen fibers to be arranged to make them the strongest possible. So I'm going to bring this guy out. This is just showing you 3 concentric lamellae, but they pulled them up in 3D. And this is showing you the protein fibers, how they're arranged in the matrix. So this, if we're looking at this concentric lamellae right here, and you pulled it up, the protein fibers are in this direction. The next outer ring, this ring, the protein fibers are going to be at 90 degrees to the protein fibers above it. Same thing, this outer ring here, the protein fibers are again going to be arranged at 90 degrees in relationship to the protein fibers here. This just gives the bone matrix extra tensile strength, makes it stronger, resist more compressive forces. So far so good, so I'm going to get rid of this guy. So we got our central canal where the blood is. We got our concentric, did I say central canal? Central canal, where our blood is. Then we have our rings of concentric lamellae. And now we're going to add, what I want you to do is draw them in. I can't draw them, I don't have a drawing tool. I'm going to just add these little guys on the rings, at the border between, it's just going to be right on the ring. So you're going to add little lacunae right on the rings. Put one there. Oops. Oh, he should be turning the other way. So I'm going to put him Oh my God, I'll put him over here. I can't turn him around. I'm going to put him here. And I'll put this guy out here. This is, my gosh. I can't move these guys in different directions. So that's bad. Let me pause this and move them in the right direction. Okay, so I added all my lacunae the way they're supposed to kind of look here. So the lacunae, just like in cartilage, they're this space that's fluid filled, and inside here is going to be where the osteocytes live. So what you can do is, once you've added your lacunae here, just kind of put them in a random order like this so you can see where they are. Add a little dot or a big dot to show you've got your osteocytes in there. I'm going to do that next. So we have, this is going to signify our osteocytes, the black dot, living in their lacunae. Just like in cartilage. Cartilage had their chondrocytes in their lacunae. Here is our central canal, which has our blood. It's going to be the source of blood, oxygen, and nutrients to feed our chondrocytes. This is hard. This ground substance is hard as a rock. There is no way the blood, there's no way the blood can diffuse through that ground substance. So what are we going to do? What blood does is they make little canals through the bone, through the hard ground substance. They call these little canals, see if I can get them here. There's one. A canaliculi. A canaliculi. A little canal. It is a canal through the matrix, and it is connecting this lacuna to the blood source. Now we're going to have, this guy is going to be connected to this guy, and this guy is going to be connected to this guy. You kind of get the idea. This guy is connected to this lacuna. This guy is connected to this lacuna. This guy is connected straight to the blood source. So the blood is going to be flowing into his lacuna, and then it will flow into his lacuna, and then from his lacuna it will flow to his. So we're getting blood flowing through these little canaliculi. Think of them as little canals that are connecting all the lacunae. I made a bunch of these, but you can do it yourself. Just draw in these little squiggles. I can't move these around. They don't move. Can't do it. So just draw in little squiggles. Geez, that's so bad. Just draw in little squiggles in between all of, like draw a squiggle in from here to here, and then from here, just have him go straight to the central canal. Just so you get the idea of what these canaliculi look like. Here, let me go back to my original drawing. In the classroom, this is kind of what we would draw. You would see the central canal. Here is our concentric lamellae. You can see the rings here. And then here we have our lacunae, and we have our osteocytes in the lacunae. And then we have these canaliculi connecting to each other. So that's how we would draw it in the classroom. Here's another drawing from off the internet. Here is the Central Canal, aka Haversian Canal. This is one osteon. Here is going to be an artery and a vein, and a nerve. That's what's in the Central Canal. These are all the canaliculi, these little black things. Here is showing you the osteocytes in their lacunae. And you can see the rings, the concentric lamellae rings. Here is what it looks like underneath the microscope. Here is the Central Canal, the blood source. Here, these black things, those are the lacunae. Within those lacunae are going to be the osteocytes. These little black lines all through here, look at all those. Those are the canaliculi, the little canals that are connecting one lacuna to another. And this guy is connected straight to the blood source. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. If you draw it and you remember what each of these parts are, it will help you to understand it a little bit more. Now we're going to show you what they look like. So here is our bone. We're going to do a cross section of a bone. So you're seeing a cross section of the bone going up and down like this, and you're looking at the top here. Here you see the osteons. So you can see the osteons here. We've got 1, 2, 3. You can see 1, 2, 3 right there, a half of one here, a full one here, and here they pulled up the concentric lamellae to show you the protein fiber arrangement again. So what this model is showing you is this is all compact bone. This is going to be the spongy bone. Only compact bone has the osteons. Here is showing you the concentric lamellae with the lacunae and the osteocytes living there, and the canaliculi. Here is showing you the protein fibers. So we need to add to this drawing. There's 3 types of lamellae. Concentric lamellae, which you've already seen. Concentric meaning the ones that are going around in the osteon. Then we have the interstitial lamellae. That is the lamellae in between the osteons. So here you can see interstitial lamellae here, here, here. It's just everything that's in between the osteons. And our last one is called circumferential lamellae. It's making a circumference around the entire bone. So it's going around the entire bone. So this right here is the circumferential lamellae. It would be going around the entire bone. What else do you see here that you've kind of already seen? Here's the compact bone. Here is the periosteum. Periosteum has 2 layers, the outer dense irregular connective tissue layer and the inner cellular layer that has our osteoblasts and osteoclasts. And remember that periosteum is connected to the compact bone through these guys. What are the, do you remember what these guys are called? Sharpie fibers. These are collagen fibers that are attaching the periosteum to the compact bone. We know the central canal is the source of blood for our osteons, but where does the blood come from? It's coming from the periosteum. Remember, dense irregular connective tissue is very rich in blood. So we are going to have these blood canals called perforating canals. Perforating because they're going through a little hole in the bone to allow the blood to go in there. Perforating canals, aka Volkmann's canals. I think I got it down here. Volkmann's canals, aka perforating canals. Get rid of that. So we can see these perforating canals coming in, and they are intersecting with this blood vessel. This is the central canal. So the central canal is getting its blood from the Volkmann's canals. Here's another perforating canal, Volkmann's canal. Here's another central canal. So central canals are in this direction. The Volkmann's canals are at right angles to the central canals. So make sure you can understand this diagram. It's a pretty good one. I like that diagram. I have another one here. Same thing. Their periosteum is not very good. But what they are showing you with the what they are showing you with that periosteum is these blue Sharpie fibers that are deep, going deep within this the compact bone. This is the circumferential lamellae. So periosteum, circumferential lamellae. Here's an osteon with its yeah, that's right. Here is the osteon with the concentric lamellae. And then you have the interstitial lamellae here. We have, this is showing you the lacunae where the osteocytes live. Here is a perforating canal, Volkmann's canal coming in, intersecting with a central canal. And this is spongy bone. Spongy bone still has osteocytes. You must remember that. Here is the lacunae with osteocytes. It's still getting blood, but in a different way. So remember, what osteons are only found in compact bone. You have 3 types of lamellae. Circumferential lamellae. It's making a circumference going around the entire bone. Within the osteons, you have concentric lamellae. In between the osteons, you have interstitial lamellae. The blood source for the osteons comes from the central canal. The blood source of the central canals are coming from these perforating or Volkmann's canals. So hopefully that makes sense. Here is a model from the classroom. We're looking down at it. You can see all the osteons here. You can see the concentric lamellae, the interstitial lamellae, the lacunae where the osteocytes live. This is a good one here showing you the Periosteum, the two layers of the periosteum, and here are the Sharpie fibers going into the compact bone. Here's the model from the side view. Again, here is the periosteum, showing you the outer periosteum, dense irregular connective tissue, inner periosteum, the intercellular layer, which is right next to this compact bone. That is where you have your osteoblasts and osteoclasts, and then you have those strong collagen Sharpie fibers anchoring the periosteum to the compact bone. Here is showing you Volkmann's canal, our perforating canal, and this is going to a central canal. Well, it's almost 40 minutes, and I wanted to show you a microscope, a virtual microscope. So this is the last slide, and then we'll be done with this video. So here would be a section of what they call dried bone. So they just ground the bone, made a thin slice of compact bone. This is all compact bone. And you're going to be looking at it under the microscope. So you put it on the microscope, and already you can kind of see these round osteons. So you go on, ooh, not controlling my higher magnification very well, but you go on higher magnification, you're seeing all the osteons here. You're seeing the concentric lamellae. You can see those rings. You can see where the lacunae are. Here, this is all interstitial lamellae in between the osteons. So let's just I'll just go there. So here on high mag, you are able to see this osteon. Here is the canaliculi. You can see the canaliculi all going towards the central canal, excuse me, central canal. I think that's it. So easy to see the interstitial lamellae, easy to see the concentric lamellae, easy to see the central canal, pretty easy to see the lacunae, and the concentric lamellae again, and the canaliculi. Whew! I think we went over everything very well. You should have this down by now. So one more video on the introduction to the skeletal system. It will be osteogenesis, or how we make bone.